Hello. If you are joining for the first time, my name is Abbas, and this is Baat Kardi. Today is the second episode of Baat Kardi, and today we're going to be touching upon what we discussed in the first episode, which was basically my move to the UK and the start of my master's. Although I discussed very briefly in the first episode about how this change has been so far for me and how life has basically had to adapt and just change since then. I did want to take a moment to talk more about this process, how things have been for me, and generally just what information I can share with anyone who might be considering this. Not just like the masters coming to the UK, but just generally on what to expect if you are planning on taking this decision, and both pros and cons, so on and so forth. So I guess let's just jump right into it. So I decided to finally come for my master's after having worked for 2.5 years in the corporate law industry. Um, I finally took my decision after having realized that I had had about enough time to recuperate after my bachelor's. So, if you are someone who is just about finishing their bachelor's or has just finished their bachelor's and you're considering your master's, I think it's very, very important to consider whether you are emotionally, mentally, and physically ready to take on a master's, because it really challenges you in every aspect, especially if you're going to be undertaking it in a new country. So, you need to know that you are as close to 100%, because I'm not going to say you need to be 100%, because being completely honest with you, sometimes 100% is very hard, if not impossible to achieve. So I'm not going to say that, but as close to 100% as you feel you can get to be able to start this journey. Because heaven forbid you're not ready, then it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks, and it's already going to hit you really, really hard as it is. So I think it's best to give yourself the best opportunity and the best position you can, because you deserve to be in the best headspace when you're doing this. So, first and foremost, it's very, very important to just know that you are in the best headspace to take on this journey. And then the next, I think it's very, very important to reconcile whether you're taking this journey for yourself or for any other reason. It's important to know what that reason is, because that also informs your decision and your experience as well. For me, it was partly because I had well wishers who were telling me that you need to take this journey to not only just build upon what you already know, but also to just have some time for yourself to really explore and understand who you are as a person. I personally, when this entire scenario was going on, I wasn't too certain if I agreed with those notions. I wasn't too certain if I really was ready to take on something like this, which as I mentioned, is something very, very important. And I also wasn't sure whether this was the correct decision for me, honestly. And I say this as someone who's been working for the last 2.5 years, even, that sometimes it's okay to take a break. Sometimes it's okay to just not know until the things become clearer. With me in this program are people who've taken breaks for 5 to 7 years, even. And there's also people who are doing this straight out of their bachelor's as well. So everyone's journey is going to be very, very different, and it's okay that it's different. It's just important to know that your journey is going to be your own, no matter what. Like, no matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone else is doing, you just need to focus on you. And that is the most important thing, no matter what. So, yeah, come to terms with what the reason is for doing your master's. And then honestly explore all your options, whether it be different countries, different programs, different universities, what have you. Really just look at each different place and try to factor in a couple of different things when making your decision. One, if your religious identity or your national identity is very, very important to you, try to find places that have those people in, I wouldn't say a majority, but necessarily in a capacity where you can find your community. So if you feel very, very strongly about your identity as a Pakistani, try to find places with, a good chunk of Pakistanis. If your identity as a Muslim is very, very important to you, try to find places with good Muslim communities, and also positive Muslim communities, because I've also noted during my brief time here, not just during my master's, but otherwise in the UK as well, that there are some communities of Muslims that can be a little much, especially if you're coming from backgrounds such as Pakistan or let's say even India. So it's important to try to find the communities that you can settle well in. And I'm not saying that those communities are bad. I'm just saying that they can be a little strong for people who come from very moderate backgrounds, which I would assume many people who might be listening to might be coming from. But if you are someone who is very spiritually and religiously heightened with where they're coming from, more power to you. So it's very, very important to factor in those details. And then I feel like your education is obviously very, very important, but a good chunk of masters is also self-study. So while your university's reputation and your teachers and so on and so forth, rankings, all that jazz, while all of that does matter, I wouldn't say it's the most important thing. Personally, I think that comes second, third, sometimes even fourth. Your experience, your exposure, what doors your university can open up to, and honestly, even what you plan to take away from that university can be just as, if not more important than the university's ranking. So I feel like these are things that people really should consider when making that decision. And then obviously, finances are very, very important. Not just your tuition, not just your accommodation, but generally the living costs of whatever country you're going to. The UK, for example, is a expensive country, especially if you're coming from Pakistan. Um, I'm not going to get into the rupee slash GBP exchange rate, because if you're a Pakistani who is listening into this, you know it's not exactly great. If you are someone internationally who is listening into it, um, just take it this way, that 380 Pakistani rupees is about £1. So it's not exactly a great currency exchange, but unfortunately, it is what it is. And we are dealing with it to the best of our abilities. So it's very, very important to know that wherever you're going in the world, if it's somewhere out in the world, then you need to know what your position is financially, and you need to know where you're going to stand after all your tuition and accommodation costs are cut. Because let's say you're in a great position, you afford your tuition, you afford your accommodation, but you have very little left to survive the rest of the year, you're going to be in a very, very difficult position. And that's also factoring in that you're only allowed to work a certain number of hours per your student visa. And obviously, that differs from country to country and then visa to visa. But generally, for example, for the UK, you're only allowed to work 20 hours per week. So that's not exactly a lot. And if you're only earning minimum wage, because that is more often than not what you're going to be eligible for and what you're actually going to be hired for, you're leaving yourself in a position where you're going to have to work really, really hard and budget really, really hard as well. So make sure to factor these things in any case. So while you are making all of these decisions and factoring all of this in, just remember that whatever decision you end up making, whether you feel it's the best, whether you feel it's just okay, try to make the most of your time, because with how unpredictable life can be and how unpredictable these occasions can be, it's very, very important and very, very crucial to remember that a plan you made could be thrown out of the window as soon as you reach. Like, things can seem so simple, so structured, and so fine, but even the best of countries have mess ups. So I've been to the UK a fair few amount of times before my master's. I thought that it would be completely easy and completely fine for me to navigate on my own. My family didn't come to drop me off. I was doing all of this on my own. So I flew in from Abu Dhabi, from Doha. I flew in from Doha to London Heathrow, and I was supposed to get a train between the terminals to reach where my university was waiting to take me from London to Cardiff directly. But due to some of the mismanagement that was happening in London Heathrow, due to some of my own inexperience, I got completely lost. And I missed out on the first shuttle that could have taken me to Cardiff, and I missed the second shuttle as well, and I nearly missed the third shuttle as well. At which point, I would have basically been. I think that they had about 3 shuttles, if not mistaken. I don't remember if there was a fourth, but if I'd missed that third one, I would have basically been screwed. Thankfully, I managed to figure things out, and I managed to reach there. So it's very, very important to familiarize yourself with the things that could potentially go wrong with your plans, whatever they may be, whether they be your initial travel plans, your accommodation plans, so on and so forth. I live by a very simple motto: hope for the best, but always prepare for the worst. Because it's very, very easy to things just go off the rails completely. So I'm trying to give you guys the best possible scenario. But, it is what it is. When I first came here, I was filled with a lot of trepidation. I was filled with a lot of anxiety. I was genuinely just unsure about what I had signed up for. And it, to me, felt as if I was making a decision for a future that I couldn't foresee. I was taking this time to basically appease anyone and everyone in my life who really cared for me and who really thought the best for me. But I held this deep sense of resentment and this sense of unease, because for all of the good and for all of the love and the hope and everything, it often felt like people couldn't see just how much I'd struggled during my bachelor's. And if you're someone who has gone through a very, very difficult ordeal during your bachelor's, or you just didn't have the best time during your bachelor's, I want to just take this moment to say, I know you, I see you, and you are not alone. Sometimes things just aren't in our control, and unfortunately, there's not much we can do about it. We just need to buckle down and try to get through it as best we can. If you have been around for some time, whether as part of my YouTube, you've been following my journey on Instagram, you know that bachelor's for me was not a good time. I struggled a lot, not just with my exams, but with COVID, the university shifting to an online model that really was not the best. And a lot went wrong before things went right. And even when they went right, it felt like a consolation rather than something that really worked out. Regardless, I tried to end things on as good a note as I could. And for wherever you are in your journey, I hope that whatever note your journey ends on, I hope you can find the energy to make it a good one. Because we only have this one life to really figure things out. There's no telling what is in store here on. So take what you can with what you have and make this the best you possibly can. But yeah, I think it's very, very important to really understand that things sort themselves out at some point or the other. We can just try to do what we will. So it felt like my family, my friends, my loved ones, they really just didn't see it from my eyes. And I don't think they can. Because they weren't the ones who had to go through it. And even though they were there for me during those challenging times and they really gave me as much support as they could, those nights were difficult And those nights were often too much. And I had to face them alone. Because for all of their support, at the end of the night, it was just me. It was just me and my thoughts and my really, really heightened emotions at the time. But I digress. You want to be in a position where you know that if you start walking down this path, you're doing it for the right reasons. And while I can't say that I started walking down it for the right reasons, I want to be in a position where I say that even if it wasn't for the right reasons, I'm glad I took this step. I'm glad I'm walking down this path, and I'm glad that I'm figuring things out as they come. Because even the best of plans can blow up in your face. So let's see where this goes. But yeah. So anyways, I've been in Cardiff for exactly 2 months now. And one of the biggest takeaways is that when I first came here, I thought the time difference was something I could easily manage. It was just 4 hours. And in the first month, things seemed all right. But that was because things hadn't really picked up as much as they were about to. I wasn't really burdened with assignments. I wasn't really caught up with life, honestly. So the first month was easy. The first month flew by. I was still in touch with family. I was still in touch with friends. Where I was managing things it was great. It was going fine. And that's before daylight savings came in. And even though it's just 1 more hour, and now the time difference between the UK and Pakistan is 5 hours, it honestly feels like a lot. I'm not able to keep in touch with my friends as much as I would like. I'm not able to check in with my family as much as I was able to earlier. And it's just one of those things that is going to take some time before it's going to sort itself out. So one thing that you really need to be prepared for is that you're not going to be able to keep in touch with those that you care about as easily as you may think. And I'm saying this with a relatively short time difference. So if you're going to somewhere like the States or you're going to Canada, for example, your time difference is going to be a lot. For somewhere like Australia, let's say, your time difference is going to be really, really brutal. So I would urge you to just have that at the back of your mind that this is going to be rough, but you're going to figure things out and you're going to get through them one at a time, no matter what. One thing that I would advise is don't be a hermit. Go out, hang out with your classmates, join societies, do activities that are happening throughout your city. Even if you don't feel yourself to be a social butterfly, take a moment to actually get to know your new city, because it's really important to push yourself beyond what you think your current limits are, because you're never really going to burst out of that shell until you have no other choice to. So there are nights here when I am just trying to get on with the rest of my day, and it's usually something mundane that I'm doing that just has my attention occupied. And oftentimes what I would do back home was I would just call a friend and just have them there on call and carry on with my task, and they'd be doing their task. It's this thing called parallel play, which is actually something toddlers often do, where they're just doing their own thing, but they're also still in the same space. So it makes them feel like they're not alone while they can still do what they were doing. So it's something that I used to do a lot back home, but unfortunately I'm not able to do anymore, because by the time I get free from most of my work and just classes and whatnot, my friends are either asleep or getting ready to sleep. So it's very, very important to have friends who are within the same space as you as well, so that you don't really succumb to how lonely this life can become. And that's not to say that there aren't exciting things going on and that things that I'm really happy about and super, into and excited for. But there will be moments where the energy will die down and circumstances will catch up with you. You will be reminded of how much you've left behind. You will be reminded of how much you're missing out on. One of my closest friends, her brother is actually getting married next year in January. She sent out the invitations a couple of days ago, and she tagged a couple of our friends in our group chat and let them know that she expects them to be dancing at one of the functions. And this is just one of those things that I'm reminded that I'm going to be missing out on. And while I'm super excited for her, I'm excited for her family, and I'm really happy for them. This is one of those things that really reminds you that you are living in a different world now. The world that you knew, the people that you knew, the experiences that you had, you've had to leave all that behind. And for better or worse, you don't fit there anymore. And that's okay. Or rather, it will be okay. Because it's not like you can't go back. It's not like you're not going to visit. It's not that this time won't end and your life will either just be back again with those people, or those people will become part of this new life, whatever, what have you. It's just that during this moment, it can feel really bleak. And it can feel really, really difficult to remind yourself that things find a way. Life finds a way. And no matter how hard it may seem, no matter how scary, you're going to figure it out. Because it's a different thing to feel lonely, and it's a different thing to be alone. You feel lonely, but you're not alone. So it's very, very important to remember that distinction. I spend my days here going to class, cooking, going to the gym, trying to give myself time to pursue my creative exploits. I've made more films while I've been here than I have in the last year, maybe even longer than that. And it just reminds me that for all that I'm missing out on back home, there's so much more that I'm doing while I'm here. Like, ever since I've come here, I've learned to cook some of my favorite dishes. I never knew how to do that back home. And I don't think I've ever would have learned to do it back home. So it really is important to take note of these small victories. I learned how to cook my favorite dishes. I'm making more films. I'm pushing myself creatively. So yes, it's not all sunshines and rainbows. And yes, things are difficult from time to time. But there is a silver lining. There's a silver lining, and, it's not all bad. So there's one thing that I would like for you to take away from this episode, is that going for your master's is a really, really big decision. It should not be taken lightly. And also that no matter what happens, no matter where you are in this point in time, no matter where you feel like your life may be going or is going, none of that matters. All that matters is that you remember sab theek ho jayega, which basically translates to it'll all be all right. Life is big, messy, and sometimes so much that it feels like everything is slipping out of your grasp. But one thing life is not is insurmountable. You can do this. I like to make this joke to people that if I can survive law school, if I can survive all of that, then you can definitely do anything and everything. Because if someone like me can survive that, then there's no telling what you can't accomplish. So take it from me, friend. It's going to get a lot worse before it's going to get a lot better. But I know you can do it. Call it blind faith, but something tells me it's going to be okay for you. I just hope you know that it's going to be okay for you too. So take some time. Take a big, deep breath. And just tell yourself that it's going to be okay too. Because we're in this together. You are not alone. So, yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I will see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Good night.